The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 are some of the most highly awarded games of all time. They've actually gotten hundreds of Game of the Year awards. They're constantly discussed as being the best game ever. And yet, the idea of The Last of Us remake seems to still be very controversial. There is a ton of debate across the internet right now because now we're just a couple weeks away from The Last of Us Part 1 remake on PlayStation 5, and people are still saying, is this worth $70 specifically? Let's take a look at the facts and some of the statements being made by the developers. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I actually live in Texas. We're about to have rolling blackouts. So if at any point this week I suddenly disappear, it's because my power's been shut off because this state is run by people that are morons. But now let's begin with the facts. So here, I tweeted this out today just about an hour ago and said, do you think The Last of Us remake is worth $60? Or sorry, $70. I'm so used to saying $60, I messed up there. Now, overwhelmingly, it does seem as if 71% currently is saying nah. So what's interesting about this is we do have a couple thousand votes here, and it seems like the idea behind this is more divisive than I intended. So looking at a lot of the replies here, you can see that people aren't necessarily against the idea of a remake. It's more about the idea of that $70 price tag specifically. Like right here, people saying, I'm a little bit in the middle. I'm sure they've put in as much work into it as any other $70 game, but having that remaster on the same platform does devalue it a bit. Like some people comparing it to the fact that PlayStation has done other remakes and they've been very spectacular. In fact, Sony's done a lot of remakes when you consider the fact that they've done stuff like Demon's Souls. Obviously, we had the Shadow of the Colossus remake. Let's think of something like, I don't know, Tony Hawk, which I guess isn't really freaking Sony, but I don't know. How about Medieval? Medieval got a full-blown remake that is spectacular, and guess what? It wasn't full price. There does seem to be this strange thing where people are saying, okay, I just think that this specifically is not quite worth the price tag. In fact, here's something interesting that actually struck my eye. I saw this last night. This was the top post on Reddit Gaming last night before I went to bed, and it's called F Naughty Dog. This post was actually forcibly deleted at about 3 a.m. because it was just stirring up so much hate and so much controversy. But here's the infographic itself. Capcom, they decide to remake the 1998 classic Resident Evil into a full-priced $60 game. It gets a free PlayStation 5 upgrade. That's what it is. And honestly, you guys know I'm the biggest Resident Evil simp on the planet. The Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remake, and obviously even the Resident Evil 1 remake, are such giant leaps, whereas graphically, from what we've seen thus far, the remake of Last of Us Part 1 is not quite as substantial. Like, things look better for sure. I'm not going to deny the fact that they've spruced it up, but pretty universally, people are saying, okay, this game came out in 2013. How much can you possibly really do in 9 years? Look at that. It also is missing the multiplayer. So technically, as it currently stands, it does seem to have less features overall. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of people in the comment section are sort of bringing up the fact that Nintendo does this as well. Nintendo will sell you an emulator basically for a game they've remade a billion times already. Look at this. I wouldn't say F Naughty Dog. I don't think there's totally their decision, but I would agree that we should have gotten the Jack trilogy instead. Now, I fully agree with this. It seems like the predominant feature here isn't saying that this is going to be a bad product. It's the fact that, you know what? This just doesn't need to be remade specifically. Look at that. The Least of Us. I do appreciate that joke. Now, I wanted to actually show this tweet here because this is, oh no, it's Alex. He does like fanboy roasting videos over on YouTube. And he's talking about the fact that the point of this debate is not, you don't have to buy it. It's not people claiming for a boycott. I mean, let's just say, full disclosure, I am absolutely going to buy The Last of Us remake. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to review it. I want to check it out. But it does still feel like, even as a fan of the series, somebody who loves the original, this is a pretty high price tag. In fact, I just realized I'm wearing a Sony shirt as I talk about how Sony needs to make this game a little bit cheaper. This is the same argument that's used by people defending companies that put microtransactions in full-priced games. There's no valid reason for game companies to raise the price of of games. I actually wanted to show this one specifically as well. So NCS Master, this guy actually does a bunch of very, very good Nintendo memes. I follow him on Twitter, very nice guy. Well, he's saying this: I think that no game should cost $70. Gaming is already expensive as is, and these companies are making millions off $60 games as base. Now, I find this to be perhaps the most interesting counter argument to the idea of video games getting more and more expensive, because we do understand that right now there is a big rising cost of development. Not only is rent more expensive, gas more expensive, electricity more expensive, but I do know the fact that right now, as it stands, just making a game requires bigger teams to make better graphics, more physics. As it currently stands, I'm definitely very hyped for The Last of Us Part 1 Remake, because the biggest difference is apparently going to be in the gameplay itself. Right now, I've actually been working on a full platinum playthrough of Last of Us Part 2, and I have to feel like playing that game on a harder difficulty with all the items unlocked, I'm doing a new game plus, you really get a chance to appreciate more how crazy good the AI is just directly inside of Last of Us Part 2. Characters trying to flank you, monsters actually trying to trap you into corners, different ideas of pathing, the fact that people will jump over walls and do callouts and try and blow you up with freaking handmade bombs. I think it's interesting how much they've managed to make Last of Us Part 2 feel like a world and feel like a story even during the combats. The biggest detriments to The Last of Us Part 1 Remake is that it's great that they're going to take that perfect gameplay, in my opinion this is legitimately perfect gameplay, and applying that to Part 1 seems great, but they have said on the record that it's just going to be the same mocap, it's going to be the same acting, it's going to be the same audio as the game we got back in 2013. It's the same story, which is what people liked the most about Last of Us Part 1. I say that even as a fan of it, I like it for the story, I like it for Joel. The fact that we're getting the exact same product, that is sort of the downside. But I wanted to take a look at this. So this guy is actually one of the developers working on The Last of Us Part 1 Remake, and he sort of seems to be trying to directly nip this in the bud. There is this constant term that's being thrown around, which is that this game is a Sony cash grab. People are specifically saying, okay, this is Sony just trying to make sure that PlayStation is extra profitable since they don't have, some huge AAA game other than God of War coming out anytime in this later quarter. Well, he says this is the most meticulously built and crafted project that I have ever seen or been a part of in my entire career. The highest level of care and attention to detail possible. Now, I feel like this is a pretty strong statement. This guy apparently worked at Ben Studios as well. This is interesting. This guy worked on God of War 2018, which in my opinion is a huge W in his book, but it seems like it's also stirred up this separate conversation now of people saying, okay, so that means that there is a surprising amount of developers working on this project. People are actually doing stuff in this to make new content. Even if it is missing the multiplayer, I guess they are actually trying to maybe rebuild the levels, rebuild the environments, rebuild it so not only does it look better, but maybe they're going to add in new puzzles, new little functions. It makes me extra curious. Can we get extra notes, extra writing, extra things that may not be acting wise, but will make the world feel more fleshed out? Now, the final tweet I wanted to look at was one actually by this guy named Paris. Now, Paris, some people consider him to be a bit of a Xbox shill. He's definitely taken some work from Microsoft. He's done some Microsoft presentations and stuff. Honestly, Paris seems like a chill guy, whatever. But he said this as an official statement. He said, in my opinion, the issue isn't that The Last of Us is being remade. We all know it's going to be one of the best games of all time. The issue is knowing that it's going to cost $70. Now, I find this interesting because I do feel like gamers are very, very informed. We are a demographic that focuses on making sure we know all the information possible. We want to know how good is it, how many frames is it going to be, how big is the install size, all right, every single aspect of it. Are you going to try and screw me? Is this a digital game that's going to be deleted later? Gamers love to obsess on every little teeny tiny inch of the product before we even have a chance to play it. And it's interesting that people are almost assuming preemptively that this game is not going to be worth the price. Now, I want to take a look at this reply to it, because honestly, it does this is perhaps the most interesting idea that's being said by a Sony employee. This is Alana Pierce. She's working currently on God of War Ragnarok, and she said this: I don't know, I 100% understand why it might have felt needed. I guess she means inside of Naughty Dog itself. The Last of Us 1 gameplay feels very outdated, especially compared to The Last of Us Part 2. This is objectively correct, and a whole new audience is going to learn about the game via the HBO show. Because yes, the new HBO show is about to come out here very, very soon, or what? That's the beginning of next year. You'd want to give them the best intro possible. In my head, it's just future-proofing a masterpiece for new gamers who are used to newer controls and gameplay, and I'm glad they're getting to experience it this way. It's less about people who have played it before, in my opinion. Now, this is such an interesting idea, which is that it's not for us. It's not for the fans. It's for the newbies who are going to be coming into this and need a fresh set of eyes on a very different style of game. I don't know. I'm still conflicted. I do want to just say that in my eyes, as it currently stands, I do not think this should cost $70. I think it should cost $40 or $50, because even with that work, if this is supposed to be that introductory experience, that fresh take into the Last of Us universe, I think a lower cost would do that just as well. But this is about the money. You may not know this, but I read a lot of comic books. I'm a big comic book fan. That's why I wear like Spider-Man shirts and stuff. And a lot of times the first issue of a new comic book storyline is cheaper to get you addicted to that universe. I think The Last of Us Remake would probably be better for Naughty Dog in the long run if it was a little bit cheaper to be that gateway drug into the greatness of Naughty Dog. But what do you think about this? Is this a big old bunch of malarkey? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Last of Us Part 1 still looks good. I don't care what anybody says. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.